We are live. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone once again. We have a lot to talk about tonight. We have Erin. We have the rainfall that is developing over the region, some of which will produce heavy downpours. We have a pretty significant pattern change. Not really a change, more like an evolution, a next step in our weather pattern that we've been in for quite some time. Now we're moving more towards longer wavelengths. We'll talk about all that. Of course, answering all your questions are already flying in on the chat room and also on YouTube. I see it already blowing up already. Pretty impressive. And of course, we have the Mets here on the side that we're going to be keeping an eye on, as always. They are down 4-1. We'll see if they can rebound. We'll see. They've been kind of rebounding lately. Phillies already won earlier. Mets and Phillies pretty much killed the Mariners. Very interesting. Gotta love baseball. So, where do I begin? There's just so much data here to go over. I really wasn't sure exactly where to start, so I figured let me start with the 8 p.m. observations of Hurricane Erin, which is moving to the north, not moving to the northeast or the west or anywhere else. It's moving to the north at 14 miles per hour. It's starting to increase in forward speed. Winds are 110 miles per hour, just below the potential to return to a Category 3 strength. And as you can see, the forecast here is for it to briefly become a major hurricane once again. Notice it is well out away from us, but we still have tropical storm watches and warnings issued along the immediate coast and on the coastal waters. So let's talk about the size of the storm. Then we'll look at the forcing mechanisms behind it, the impacts, what this means for the rainfall for us, and pretty much everything else that's going to be involved with influencing this weather pattern as we go forward. So let's see, where do we begin? Oh, by the way, I also made a nice little discussion about some of these individuals running around on social media. You know who, claiming that all sorts of nonsense, about the hurricanes, about what more hurricanes following after this. So, also going to answer that as well, because look, no one's controlling the hurricanes, and no, there aren't waves of hurricanes approaching after Aaron. There just isn't. So, we'll go over all that information. So, first, I figured let me start with, of course, the radar goes off. So, let me redo this. I love technology. We'll use our WeatherTap radar, allow that, and reload it. So this is fine. Let me go out here. Let me put on the new overlay, satellite. Why do I want to do this? I'll show you in just a moment. And we'll do the surface front, and we'll zoom in. And we'll refresh. Now the reason why I want to do that is I want to use the measure stick out here. And if we can get the satellite on, hopefully it will be able to load. Of course not. Of course it doesn't want to load because I had something really cool to show. But, we'll try infrared instead. But all right, we'll come back to it. But the idea was this. The extent of the hurricane goes all the way out to about here, okay? So that's roughly 600 miles out that it's having an impact on the weather pattern, okay? Now, what do I mean by impact? Well, let me pull up the satellite picture here. Pick the right one. Here we are. Okay, so as we can see here, the extent of our storm, the moisture transport, you see all the way up into Virginia, while the core is out here towards the Atlantic. It's pretty impressive how wide this storm is, how impressive the storm is in terms of size. And the reason why I want to point that out is that is why we're seeing tropical storm watches and warnings on the mid-Atlantic coast. Not that the storm moved is further west or anything of that nature, but just the size of the storm is so hot, so far, so expansive that tropical storm force winds will reach the Outer Banks. We're talking about 40 miles per hour sustained. Tropical storm gusts will reach the New Jersey shore, especially from Ocean County on southward. And probably sustained tropical storm force winds further out into the coastal waters, maybe around 20 to 30 nautical miles out. That's pretty impressive, but it's not unusual to see this happen because when a tropical system moves up in the latitudes, it typically does expand, especially as it's interacting with the polar jet stream. So right now, it's going through an interesting structural evolution. What's happening is that it's starting to interact with the Gulf Stream, and it's also benefiting from these upper level winds. This is our polar jet stream and the jet stream. This is our trough that's moving through right now. Notice again the positive tilt. This is really important. Whenever you have a positive tilt set up like this, that's going to push your storms out. The only time a positively tilted trough pulls a storm into the United States is if the storm is down here in the Gulf Coast and it gets pulled in and kind of travels up the East Coast, like in this direction here. But whenever you have a storm around the Bahamas or around the Carolina coastal waters and you see this signal showing up in the model guidance several days out, you could bet that this thing's going to get kicked right out into the Atlantic because this trough sets up your steering winds away. But what it's also doing right now is that it's enhancing the outflow on the northern side of the storm. So it's allowing it to ventilate, right? So when you have this ventilation being enhanced, it allows your storm to have the potential to intensify. And that is why Erin has grown in strength from 100 miles per hour a couple yesterday when it was dealing with a lot of wind shear and dry air to 110 miles per hour now because of that influence. So as Erin lifts northward, these winds for now are helping it grow. But once it gets to right about here, right about this area right here, once it gets to that point, what's going to happen? And let me see if I could draw this out here. So let me make sure. Okay, good. So right about when it's right here. Once it gets to about here, it's going to start to feel the influence of these winds, right? And so that's why it's going to start to hook out. But while it's also starting to hook out, it's also going to start to get sheared apart because those winds are going to increase. Tropical systems like to be vertically stacked. And so when it starts to interact with these polar jet streams, what happens is that the storm either has two processes. One, it just gets sheared apart and weakens rapidly, or two, it just goes with the flow and starts to transition into an extratropical low pressure system. I think you'll see a little bit of both with Erin as we move forward. And the reason why that's an important detail here is that that is how we get the winds to expand towards the coastal waters on the Jersey Shore. And that's why basically tomorrow on through Friday is going to be pretty breezy on the Jersey Shore. Expect 30-mile-per-hour winds, especially wind gusts over 30 miles per hour. Don't be surprised to get a 40-mile-per-hour wind gust at times pop up in the observations. I think I already saw one starting to show up, especially with some of the buoys out there. So this whole process is not just the storm itself, but the interaction of different features in the atmosphere all working together. So while this is all happening, the moisture expansion, and we can see that with the water vapor satellite picture, is running into our polar trough. Now, obviously, this is cool polar air. Okay, so you have three air masses that we're dealing with here. You have the maritime air mass, you have the tropical air mass pushing northward, and then you have your polar air mass invading from the west. So when you have this interaction of three different air masses, two of which are moisture loaded, this is how you open up the potential for very heavy rainfall. So what I did is take a look at the latest skew T from the HRR, and you can see that influence here all the way up to about 800 millibars. The maritime air mass here, tropical air mass here. You can also see it in the winds. Here's the easterly component with the maritime air mass up to about 925 millibars. Here's the tropical component up here with your southwesterly winds. Notice the 850 millibar temperature is basically unchanged. So what you have here is even the slightly warmer air mass between 850 millibars and 900 millibars than in almost comparable at the immediate surface here. So that's a sign here that you have a pretty warm air mass pushing in at the mid levels of the atmosphere that's also moisture loaded. So there is your two air mass interaction setting up. And that's why we've been cloudy all day and we've gotten these pesky showers with an occasional heavy downpour. Let's see if this refreshed on me or not. For some reason, every time I use this system during our live chat, it seems to have issues. But when I'm not in live chat, it works perfectly. Go figure. So let me go and zoom in on our neck of the woods right now. And you can see some of these heavier showers here setting up. In fact, let's see if I can actually use this feature right here. We'll let that load. Okay, so perfect. Oh, of course, now the satellite shows up. Let me take that off for a minute. And you can see two areas of moisture moving in. The moisture coming in from Erin, the very, very edge of it, okay, and the easterly component combining, and also the moisture coming in from the cold front back here, and with our polar trough. Two interactions evolving here and interacting. And so what this sets up here is that, first of all, here's our hurricane. This right here is our pressure gradient. As this is lifting northward, this pressure gradient is going to intensify, and that's how we're going to see the stronger northeasterly winds starting to set up. Meanwhile, our moisture transfer, there's our moisture convergence here. That's what's setting up our heavier rainfall. The precipitable water values have been rising steadily all day. Now we're pushing up to about 1.8 inches. We'll get pretty close to 2 inches. And that is what's showing up in the model guidance here for this evening, is the potential for those precipitable water values to push over 2 inches because of all this lifting in the atmosphere. So, as you can see, that leads to the potential here for a few of these showers capable of some very heavy downpours at times. So not everyone's going to get these torrential downpours, but because you're getting two different moisture sources and the strong lifting combined, that's what's going to lead to some of these heavier showers taking shape here. But again, it's not going to be a complete washout. The primary concern here is actually going to just be the minor impacts from left over from Erin in terms of the coastal flooding and the strong winds on the immediate coast. So that is where we are at with Erin right now. It is right now probably going to touch category 3 at 11 p.m. And what I mean by that, it'll probably just get to 115. It's stall about there on strengthening. Once it gets to the east of the Outer Banks, that's when it's going to start to run into the shear. The only thing that is inhibiting, in fact, let me erase this. Sorry about that. The one thing that is inhibiting this whole evolution is some of this dry air. That's probably the one thing that's preventing Erin from really taking advantage of all of the enhancement from the jet streak that we're seeing right now. So where do we go from here? Do we have other systems that we're going to be keeping an eye on? Yes, we are watching two out here. They are interesting, but notice where this is curving out to. It looks like for the most part, we're going to be protected pretty nicely here. I don't see any indication for any immediate storms over the next 10 to 15 days being a threat for the eastern United States. And the way that the MJO is setting up here, we may actually break out to, you know, in the middle, in early September. Take a look at the forecast. Neutral MJO, not a lot of forcing, not a lot of support for a lot of tropical activity. We may actually dodge a bullet here this for this summer. I was expecting a near normal season, but we may actually end up below normal at this rate if what the MJO is showing actually comes to pass and we end up with a little bit more less activity. That actually could happen. And when we take a look at the forecast here. Here is it. Here it is. Okay, take a look. Here comes Erin. That's Erin right here. This is a extratropical low for later on next week. Not a threat for us or anything of that nature or anything tropical. There is one tropical disturbance. Here's the other one that's expected to basically flare out. And then after that, We have no sign of any type of major storm showing up on the ensembles. Absolutely nothing. Nothing's really standing out that's really impressive. So that is some great news. Okay, because I know that there's a lot of scare tactics out there. There's a lot of people running around saying a lot of crazy stuff. Erin, after Erin, we might get a pretty nice break here with not much activity. We'll have two storms we'll have to watch out that are generally what they call fish storms that have no threat at this point in any mile guidance on the United States. Funny enough, no one even shared that on X or on any of the social media. What do you know, right? So it's very interesting to see this all evolve. Now, what is driving our whole weather pattern here? And then we'll get back to the rain and take a look at the radar in just a moment. But I kind of want to go over this real fast. So the CBC did issue a watch for a La Nina. I'm a little skeptical of it. Let me show you some of the data here. So the idea here is that this cold pool is going to enhance the support for a La Nina. A very short, they actually put it in the watch that there could be a very weak, short La Nina for, let's say, October to December, right? And then it collapses. Here's the problem with that is that the upper ocean heat anomalies here barely even support a La Nina. It would support a cold neutral environment. And if anything, it's been moderating ever since that watch was put out. So I'm not really all that impressed with a La Nina support. And not only that, but the SOI here, wrong one, here we are back here, has fallen back down to neutral. So I'm not seeing any strong signals for a La Nina. I'm not seeing, what I am seeing is more of a neutral state here. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. I would not be surprised if Nino 3.4, as we move on through the fall and towards the winter, gets pushed towards 0. Minus 0.2 to minus 0.4, but never actually reaches that La Nina state. Now, a cool neutral state does lead to a slightly weaker subtropical jet stream, but it still puts up a pretty good fight. And you don't really get that southeast ridge influence. It kind of gets displaced to the east and doesn't really gain momentum, right? So, what are we going to be watching? Well, I'm going to be watching the atmospheric angular momentum. That is going to be a very important feature. Let me see, pull that up. Well, here we are. Okay, so I'll be watching this very carefully to seeing where this ends up here. If we see it kind of trending neutral to positive, then that would certainly enhance the potential for more high latitude blocking. Meanwhile, as you know, and as I showed a few minutes ago, we have our QBO in the easterly phase. This would also enhance high latitude blocking. But the biggest thing that really stands out to me is what's going on in the stratosphere, and especially around the northern Pacific. And let me explain why. This is not a flash in the pan anomaly that has been showing up. This has been persistent for several weeks, dare I say months. And the reason why that really catches my attention is that this warming that has focused and developed, that has remained in place, is happening when typically you don't see a lot of warming in the stratosphere. It's typically cool because you have more direct impact from the sun. It breaks up the ozone and you get a cooler stratospheric environment, and that's why you get your heat waves, because a colder stratospheric environment means your 500 millibar heights are higher, right? So this really should catch your attention, and it certainly does for me. Now, this doesn't mean I'm ready to give a winter forecast or say, hey, it's going to be really cold and snowy or anything of that nature, because there is a lot of stuff that we don't know yet. For example, Siberian snow growth and the potential for interaction with the PDO and what's going on in the tropics. We don't know the evolution of the NAO, right, and how that's going to play out. Sea ice is another factor. So I'm just kind of labeling out all the things that we still have to wait and see evolve before we put out a winter forecast, which is why I wait till October. Even though sometimes it's okay not to be first, it's better to be right, right? Okay, so I don't need to put out stuff in August when I know it's going to change. So, with that being the case, this feature that we're seeing here, the reason why that's important is that it supports a sustained negative EPO pattern. And if you get a sustained negative EPO pattern, you tend to support a deeper trough over the eastern United States. Okay, more below normal heights over the eastern United States. And so, what are we seeing in our long range pattern here? We're seeing that trough, but also keep an eye on the orientation of the trough. For the most part, it's staying in a positive anomaly, positive orientation. And the reason why that's important is that that will protect us from tropical low pressure systems. It also tends to lead to faster moving low pressure systems. So you tend to get this near to below normal type temperature regime with your low temperatures on the cool side and your high temperatures generally near normal, and you get below normal precipitation because you really can't get any storm to rock and roll. What we're going to have to watch out for as we go through the 10 to 15-day period, because again, you never take this verbatim, is you want to watch out for any type of cutoff feature here around the Tennessee River Valley. That could be a warning sign. We also have to keep an eye on the orientation of the troughs as we move on into the middle of September and see if there's anything out here. So that is my that's why I'm not ready to give it all clear in terms of impacts or to say all clear in terms of hotter temperatures because beyond early September, there's still that potential for us to get that Western Atlantic ridge to build back, get more of a southwesterly flow on the coast, and for a more dynamic weather pattern. But certainly for the start of August, for the start of September, should I say, man, oh man, you can't ask for a better weather pattern. Look at this. This is going to be absolutely beautiful. When you get this type of setup, and you're talking about temperatures in the 70s with low humidity, and this time of year you could easily be in the 90s and pushing into the hundreds. So I'll take it and run with it. And let's see if I can get some updated data here. I was waiting for this to come in. Might as well try now. Here we go. Look at this. Just very impressive. And let me be clear, this doesn't mean cold. This means comfortable. Okay. You're talking about high temperatures in the 70s and 80s. Not a lot of precipitation, though. So we might have to watch out for a drought potential here. That's the one thing that is concerning. But also notice a lot of your rainfall is remaining out over the coastal waters. And when we took a look at the long range 45-day European. Notice a lot of focus possibly on the Gulf Coast, but certainly over the West Atlantic. Boy, does that look familiar, right? That curve. So a lot of protection here around the Northern Mid-Atlantic and New England. So I want to share some good news in terms of, I know there's a lot of scare tactics out there, but the reality is the data is saying that we might actually be pretty well protected. Now, as far as the rainfall for this evening, I just want to go over this. Again, not everyone's going to see the rainfall here. But as these showers roll in from the Atlantic and they interact with the cold front, again, take a look at the water vapor satellite picture. You can see very impressive cold front here. Why do I say it's impressive? Look at the strong sinking air here. This tells you have strong rising motion here. And that is why when we take a look at the lifting parameters here, let me show you precipitable water placement. Look at this potential here. So when you have this signal, I know it's a bit busy. Okay, I get it. In that respect, it's a little bit busy and unfortunate in that matter. But what it's generally telling you when you're seeing this is that hey, when these showers organize, they're going to be capable of some very heavy downpours. So again, one town could easily get a 1 inch per hour type rainfall, and the next town barely drizzle. That's the way that this is set up here. But certainly, if you get hit with some of these heavier showers, there will be the potential here for some urban flooding and some minor flooding around streams and whatnot. So just keep an eye on that as this all moves through. And a lot of the rain that is enhanced up here. Let's see if we can go See this right here? This rain right here is enhanced by this jet streak right here. So that's why we're seeing the steadier, heavier rain here. And let's see if where I originally planned. Oh, there it is. Now it works out. So here, let me zoom out because I wanted to show you this because I thought it was really cool. So let me pull this back, take off the city labels, and let me show you this. Okay, so here's a storm out here, right? The center of it, it has an influence all the way out to 580 miles. That's impressive. Let me set up one other thing here. We'll go to enhanced infrared. We'll zoom in a little bit more. And you can see, again, here is your center. Here's your eye. Just impressive just how far out the winds are on this. Almost 300 miles in terms of an impact on tropical storm force winds. So that is pretty impressive. So I've gone over a lot of this stuff here in terms of what I'm expecting with this rainfall. Again, not everyone's going to see heavy rainfall, but definitely watch out for tropical downpours in this setup here. And let me change this. Certainly is going to be an active period overnight. And so now I am going to answer all of your questions. And it looks like the Mets are making a comeback. They're down 4-5, and they have runners on first and third. So hopefully, and Beatty's up. Beatty's been killing it. So that'd be fun. All right. So first we answer the questions from the chat room from the premium members, and then we go check out, see what's going on in social media land. So let's see what we have. We also had, just so premium members know, I've shifted. I've been upgrading a lot. I'm sure you've been noticing the video quality is getting better with the daily videos. We've been doing more TikTok and short range videos. But also now the chat room is going to be open all day for as long as I am working, in the office to answer any questions. So that way you don't have to email me. You could just go in the chat room and ask. So just so you know, that is now live. All right. So in the let's see here. Uh, Note how people, this is Card, by the way. Card is always asking a lot of questions, which is always really, really cool. How how all the people who host long range GFS monster hurricane hits on North New York City Metro are not posting tonight's 18Z GFS. I wonder why. Yeah, I mean, I actually made a social media post just on that. It's sad that people need to get attention, but it's also sad that some social media companies are paying these people for this attention. I think that's what needs to change. Look, you can post whatever you want, but the reason why some of these people are posting it's not because they really believe it. It's because they make money off of it. Because if you get a lot of hits and you get a lot of attention, then you get advertising money. And that's the reality. Let's see. Card says, have to say, even though it's with rain, temperatures in the 60s during the day in August is nice. Oh, you're not going to get an argument from me. Uh, Soil activity didn't just drop; it fell off the edge of the Grand Canyon. Yeah, it definitely fell off, backed off. It was really, really active for a time, and then it just kind of backed off. I think it will rebound, but it's been so impressive of late over the past couple of weeks. I'm not surprised that it has backed off a bit. We'll have an update on solar weather on Friday, as we always do. Excuse me. Let's see here. Will it be breezy in New York City metro area, particularly New Jersey South? Yes, it definitely will be. Expect tomorrow winds from the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour. If you're on the immediate coast and you're on the southern side of Long Island, don't be surprised you get some wind gusts pushing over 30 miles per hour. So if you have anything outside that's loose, I probably would bring it in. Um, is the biggest threat from tropical mischief at this point once the MJO goes neutral, going to be spit ups from fronts off the coast. That is one potential that we'll have to keep an eye on. I do think the MJO goes back into a more active state in mid September through mid October. And that's when we're going to have to really be on guard. Because again, those still are active time periods for tropical systems. Is the biggest, let's see, Rob says, there has been quite a bit of chatter regarding how the Pacific jet has been extended considering the stratospheric data right now. What are your thoughts about how the Pacific may influence the fall leading into the winter? Um, boy, I think that it is dangerous. There's a jet extension because of the tropical forcing. So you have to also take into account the change in the wavelengths and the evolution of how the stratosphere is going to influence the polar jet stream, and also the uncertainty that's going on with the tropical forcing driven by the MJO. Now, the MJO is currently in phase three, which makes a lot of sense to have a jet extension starting to grow. That really wasn't the case when it was in phase 8, 1, and 2, right? Then it goes into a neutral state, and now you're seeing the amalgam this broad trough over the eastern United States. So, what this is telling me is that the Pacific jet extension that we're keeping an eye on, that we're noticing, it's not driven by any type of sustained factors, but more of the current MJO state, which is transient. So you really can't take a lot out of it, positive or negative, for the winter forecast. Um, but it's certainly something to, hey, look, it's something that you could put in the back of your mind and say, okay, during an MJO phase with a really wishy-washy ENSO influence, and with the QBO in a negative state, the AMO, the AMM, should I say, in more of a neutral state, you saw this jet extension. Would that play out also in the winter? Possibly, but I wouldn't jump to conclusions just yet. I would just keep that as something as a reference point. Say, okay, this is how the atmosphere reacted with these features in place. But by that point, you're dealing with totally different wavelengths, and you also have other factors impacting the atmosphere as well. So it's not something to be overly worried about, but it's something just to note, so that way you could look back on it and say, okay, what are the other factors leading into the evolution of our weather pattern? Let's see what we got here on social media. We'll go to YouTube here, and wow, it is very active, very busy. Let's see here. You touched on this one, but why tropical system? Okay, so why do tropical systems and their wind field become broader as they reach higher latitude? Okay, that's a great question. So there's a couple of factors that are taking place here. For one, as the low pressure system in the tropics is moving out into the higher latitudes, the pressure field around the hurricane changes quite drastically. Again, it's interacting with more different air masses, you're interacting with different high pressure systems, you're increasing the pressure gradient and the height gradient as you're moving up into the higher latitudes. So what happens is that this leads to a natural expansion of the wind field. And so what was in the tropics a tight circulation and a tight area of the warm core evolution gets spread out and expanded because everything else around it is changing, it's cooling. So the warm core low expands as well to balance it out. Again, this is all about atmospheric pressure. All the atmosphere is trying to find that balance. So as a result, what typically happens with these storms is that the intensity of the winds start to decline in terms of the core, but the influence and expansion of the tropical storm and base hurricane winds are able to expand in size. So that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. Then you throw in the fact that you have interactions with the polar jet stream. And when that starts to happen, it starts to begin that transition from tropical warm core to extratropical, okay, cold core. And so that process as well leads to the transition of the winds being able to expand because it's going from baroclinic to from tropical to baroclinic. So that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. That's the basic idea. I mean, we go to the equations, all that stuff, but that could be a lot. Um, let's see. In terms of bombogenesis reserving from mid-latitude cyclones, is there a similar term when tropical cyclones go under explosive intensification? Not really that I know of. Although I guess you could still call it bombogenesis, really. Tonight's rain is, I would say, out of all the factors, I'd give it maybe about 10%, and that 10% comes from the mid and upper level winds, not necessarily the mid and upper levels, like 700 millibars, let's say 700 millibars, 850 millibars uh, some of that moisture, but not a direct impact. So you got an inch of rain in the last hour of solid band gusty winds in Keyport, New Jersey. Yep, that's right about northeast Monmouth County. Uh, so with these weather patterns, my electric bill should be down for August and September. I make no promise on that. I am not getting involved with electric bill situations, but you should be using the air conditioner less. That is for sure. Um, I don't see any threat for look. The severe thunderstorm threat for Monday, Sunday to Monday looks really low. For one, you don't have much in the way of Cape value here. Let me pull up the Cape data here. Let's see, I know it's somewhere around here. Here we are. Okay, so Cape values for Sunday into Monday. Of course, refresh it and see if I got new data here. And of course not. All right, there we are. Let's see if we can get anything new out here. Normally, I don't normally go out that far, but okay, so here we are, the Cape value setup here, and it's really low. So Sunday heading in is non-existent, almost no Cape on the Jersey Shore. Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Nah, I don't see this. I don't see this being a severe threat at all. At all. Maybe you might get an embedded thunderstorm, but at this point, no severe weather. Let's see. Could any heavier downpours contain thunder? Not really expected. I'm very excited for fall. Yeah, so am I. Is there a drier period? Yeah, we already covered that. Definitely, we're definitely moving in towards a drier period. Uh, we have been getting more earthquakes lately. I'm not a geologist, but I'm not surprised. We are on the Ramapo fault line, and that actually can be very active. Not necessarily what you would see in California or anything of that nature, but certainly you can get some pretty good active earthquakes. We actually had a pretty good earthquake in New York City way back in the 1800s. So it's not unheard of, okay? But I don't want to really make any more statements beyond that because, again, I'm not a geologist and I don't play one on TV. But yeah, I definitely have been seeing some pretty good activity of late. Let's see here. Go back to the chat room here and then we'll check out the other social media. Beyond the flooding possibilities, how do you think the moving systems will impact the shore weather in Monmouth County this weekend, especially Saturday? The primary threat is going to be your riptides. That's going to be the primary concern by the time we get to Saturday. And probably still enhanced wave heights. Again, this is a big storm and still having big impacts. So I would expect to see the continuation of that being a factor. But other than that, I mean, I think they're probably going to keep a lot of people out of the water because the riptides are going to still be pretty strong. I think by Sunday they'll probably back off. Uh, oh, the Yankees have a perfect game through four. Good for them. Well, I probably jinxed it now. 2 to 3 foot surge forecast per Stevens flood system. Pretty impressive of a storm 600 miles away. Yeah, and a lot of that is due to the sustained easterly wind component to begin with, driving the water in here, and then you get the tropical component that's really pushing the setup pretty impressively. I am not a fan of hot and humid weather. Do you think 90 degrees or higher is over? I would never say completely over. I would say that the potential for a heat wave is very, very low at this point. Um, I can't rule out a day spiking into the 90s, let's say in September, little fall summer type scenario. So since I don't have data that far out to make a determination of that, I wouldn't rule it out just yet. But at least for the next 15 days, I don't see it. So take it while you can. Anything on X or you? In the meantime, let's see what else we have here. And what do we have here on X? Oh, okay. Well, apparently there's heavy rain in parts of let's see here, that's around New York City. So not a lot going on over there. Okay, not a problem. Definitely some good questions here on YouTube, though. That is some good stuff. And of course, the premium members are always coming through with excellent questions as always. Well, Facebook is Facebook. Let's see. So, Susan, what do you think of the comfortable weather? It's all right. It's all right. I mean, I personally love it. I'm absolutely loving this weather because, again, it's nice to be able to walk outside and not feeling like you're about to burst into flames. Yeah, well, yeah, that too. I personally, we'll see. I like staying inside because I'm a homebody. We can both stay inside. But anyway, taking a look at the radar here, it looks like we're starting to see an increase in that heavier rainfall right on the shore and on the I-95 corridor. And that was showing up pretty nicely on the HRR guidance. Let's see if we get updated data on that. And again, the setup here is such that it's going to focus on the I-95 corridor and down towards the coast. And it's not going to be widespread, but my concern here is some of these heavier showers that are showing up here, they're going to produce some heavy downpours, and that is going to easily drop a quick half an inch or an inch of rain. Getting one of those torrential downpours in my part of Union County right now. So that's right about here. So let's see if we can zoom out here. So this right here is the leading edge of the polar trough. This is our stationary front. This is what's left of the cold front. And so this whole setup here is exactly why our hurricane isn't going to be getting any closer to us, thankfully, and it will likely get pushed out into the Atlantic in this scenario. In terms of the lifting that's left on this, let's see if there's any more increase in precipitated water value. Not much. We have that gradient right here. Right now, I don't see anything that would be unusual. It's pretty much evolving pretty much exactly as expected. So that's certainly some good news. And not bad, we answered a lot of the questions already. It's only 8:43, so not bad at all. We're doing some good chopping. Let's see here. 62 in Flushing, Queens. When will your winter forecast be out? Every year I issue the winter forecast, give or take a day, around October 20th. I don't like issuing it beforehand. I certainly don't do it in August and September because there's a lot of stuff that is missing in terms of issuing the forecast. Um, I really don't like issuing a winter forecast before I get a good idea of the Siberian snowfall, where we are with that. And also, I want to get a better idea of where we are with Enzo, the El Nino Southern Oscillation. Because of that, I always think it's a bad idea to issue winter forecast beforehand. Now, some people are already talking about, see, what is the Farmer's Almanac? Why don't I consider that a forecast? Because as you know, when I'm issuing a forecast, especially for premium members, I always lay out exactly what is the reasoning behind the forecast and the mechanism behind it, and what can go wrong, what can go right. They refuse to do that, which makes me question what in the heck they're doing. And they make some statements, oh, it's the moon, the stars, and it's our equations. Here's what they really do. They make the forecast so vague that it'll seem right no matter what they say. So every year they have it snowy. Well, yeah, you're going to have snowy time periods in the winter because it's winter. It'll be cold. Well, yeah, I mean, it will be cold, but they typically don't give a lot of specific details. And, you know, I'm not really all that concerned about it, to be honest with you, but I know a lot of people like to really focus in on that. But it's easy to be right when you're really, really vague about pretty much everything about the forecast. Diving in. Anything from Facebook at all? No, that's about it. Anything on X? No, nothing. All right, that works. So let me just pull this up and keep an eye on this radar. And let me pull up the latest satellite picture. I want to get a new updated satellite picture for Erin. And by the way, if you want to get great satellite information, go to star.nesdis.noaa.gov, and you could always guarantee to get great satellite data. This is rarely, if ever, down. Um, and of course, you pay for it already, but your taxes. But it is a great source of information. So let me pull up the clear, clean, and let's see what we got with Erin. Yeah, the latest NHC update is already out, and pull up the right one. Here we are. The one at 8 p.m. has winds of 110 miles per hour. Let's get the public advisory out. Okay, so pressure's down to 941 millibars. It was up a little earlier, so that's pretty good. It's moving north and it's increasing speed now at 10 miles per hour. It is about 245 miles to the south southeast of Cape Hatteras. And again, it won't move any further west. 490 miles to the west of Bermuda. And again, the pressure is falling down to 941 millibars. Now, right about here is our Gulf Stream. It's starting to run right over it. The reason why, again, we're not seeing a lot of rapid intensification and really seeing Erin jump to that Category 3 level is because of this dry air influence here. It's kind of like a dry bubble, and it's really impeding the potential here for this storm. That doesn't mean it can't overcome it eventually, but it's going to be losing time period, the time to actually make that jump, because once it gets to about here, okay, once it gets to about 35 north, it's going to start to feel the influence of that jet streak. And again, you see that right here, that jet streak here. It's setting up, the edge of it's right around New Jersey, right around Cape May, New Jersey, maybe put it around the northern Delmarva Peninsula. Once this gets up into this level here, then the northern side of this storm is going to start to get choked off. And then you're going to see a, let's see here, where is it? The northern edge right here just gets start to get sheared off faster and faster, and then that's when you're going to start to see Erin really start to shift more towards the northeast and really drive itself out here. Will wildfire smoke be an issue in the upcoming weather pattern in the next couple of weeks? With the northwesterly flow, the way the Canadians handle forest fires, I can't rule it out. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near the air quality issue that we've seen in the past, though. It looks like that's going to be backing off just a bit. So I think that's some good news in that respect. So I don't expect it to be serious, but if you have asthma and whatnot, you probably want to keep an eye on that. Oh boy, we have more activity here on YouTube. Let's see what we got here. Uh, how did New York City get 7 inches of snow on November 11th, 2019? Oh, I remember that storm. It was a area low pressure and a very impressive polar air mass that really wasn't expected, and it got a pretty good, impressive storm set up out of that. Although I don't know if it was 7 inches. I don't know off the top of my head. But definitely it was one of those surprise storms that no one, even I, was not prepared for. I was like, what in the hell's going on here? Um, I remember the Halloween snow event in New York City. I forgot that. What year was that? I think that was. What was that year when we were supposed to go to a Halloween party and it snowed?
2011 or 2012.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah, I think you're right. 2012. I think it was 2012. I remember that. It was an upper level low that intensified. And the idea was that it would be a rain snow mix. What is it going to accumulate? Well, it accumulated because we had strong enough lifting, and there you have it. I remember when I was in college, my professor said it was important to know where the 540 line was located in terms of winter storms. What is the 540 line? The 540 line, the 540, that's thickness. Okay, that is the thickness of the atmosphere between 1,000 and 500 millibars. So 540 is typically, not always, but typically where you would set up your rain snow line. Um, you also want to take a look at your 850 line to understand the potential for wintry mix and frozen precipitation. But it's a good fast rule to keep an eye on in terms of winter precipitation. Well, hello, feeding frenzy. How you doing? Let's see what else we have here. I think the rest of the season after the Halloween storm was pretty scarce of snow. Yeah, it was, and that was a this typically happens. Those type of snow events in November and early December, but especially like October, November, and early December, happens a lot when you have a La Nina year. And the reason why is that your polar air masses get a little bit more aggressive in the fall. And then because of the wavelengths, you get the trough retrograde back more towards the Mississippi River Valley, and you get a lot of storm tracks that lift up towards the Great Lakes, and we basically get a lot of lake cutters for the rest of the winter. Whereas in the fall, it sets up just right, and if you have the right scenarios, you get a surprise snowstorm. Um, Again, for this year, I do not expect a La Nina. At least not a dominant one. I'll put it that way. I could see, let's say in Nino 3.4, us getting cool enough to, let's say, uh, just touching the La Nina level at minus 0.5, but I don't see anything beyond that. And the reason why is that there's nothing in the subsurface that would suggest that we would get beyond that. Again, we'll have to watch and see how it evolves over the next 8 weeks. But as it stands right now, I don't see anything of that nature that really stands out to me. There was snow right after Sandy. Yes. Okay, so what happened with Sandy? So first of all, the whole process that pulled Sandy towards the New Jersey coast was part of an upper level low. Remember I mentioned watch out for upper level lows in Tennessee? Well, there's a good example of that scenario. And with Sandy, when it pulled in, it interacted with a polar air mass. Then another low pressure system came behind it. It was hard to track because no one had electricity, but that came up behind it, and that also produced a nice little moderate snowfall event, especially over the interior with the lingering cold air that was left over. That was a pretty nasty one. Enzo 4 region seems to be a bit above normal, though, doesn't it? Let's pull it up. Let's take a look here. Let's pull up the data here. Where are we? Okay, so Nino 1 plus 2 is definitely warm. Nino 3 has been on the cool side, but it's already moderating. It's back towards neutral. Nino 3.4 is your coldest area at -3, -0.3. And then Nino 4 is bouncing between near normal and -0.1, which is not huge. Again, the thing I'm watching out for with Enso is that I'm not seeing a strong support in the subsurface. Yeah, I got that cold pool, and this cold pool was driven by a Kelvin wave. But I think we reached the peak. And I think it moderates from here on out. Daniel Venus, I think I said that name right. I apologize. Said, I want to personally thank you for how dedicated you are to your profession. Well, thanks. My best friend George, who passed away in 2023. Thank you. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. Very much enjoyed your premium content. He was well known as a local forecaster for over 30 years in North Adams, Massachusetts. He was near totally blind, and it was an honor as his best friend to share your premium content with him. Thank you. Well, thank you. That is, I don't even know what to say to that. That is I'm sorry for your loss. Obviously, that's got to be rough. But also, thank you. Um, I do this because I love it, and I'm glad to be able to share with so many people that passion. But
It is.
again, yeah, it has to be a passion. It has to be a passion, that is for sure, to do this, and to almost lose your voice too. But wow, I mean that hit me. Wow. But like I said, I'm sorry for your loss. But thank you very much. Um, but subsurface card points out subsurface further west to 3.4 looks to be above normal again, not at El Nino levels, but enough to keep it neutral. Oh, you mean like over here? Okay, so yeah, the setup here in the subsurface, technically, if you lift the waters up right to the surface, it could support a La Nina circulation um, for a short time. But when you're lifting waters up, those waters here are also going to moderate. So again, I'm not really all that impressed here in this scenario. In fact, we're seeing a lot more growing warmer water starting to rebound here after this cool shot. So I am skeptical of this La Nina idea. I'll put it that way, and I'll be kind in that respect. Okay, so it is 8:57, and I am starting to lose my voice. So with that, outstanding questions. Thank you again for everything, for following along. I am happy to say we do not have any type of major storms on the horizon. It looks like, for the most part, that the impacts from Erin are going to be primarily focused on coastal flooding. But again, if you're on the immediate shore, don't mess around with coastal flooding or urban flooding or any type of flooding. Do not try to drive through it because it might actually be deeper than what you think. So, of course, be careful there. But I'm happy to say, even though obviously we get major storms, I mean, let's be honest, would I make more money? Yes. But I am happy to say that I don't have that opportunity because over the next 15 days, once we get rid of Aaron, it's going to be very quiet. And that's certainly a good thing. But I do want to let you know one of the things that we are working on, and what we're working on with some of the software, is that once we do get a significant storm, we are planning on doing streaming. I'm looking into Twitch, see how that works, and follow along as see what I do as I go. There will be some dead periods because I will go out and get some coffee and stuff like that. But basically, just follow along as the whole storm evolves and see what's new. And That should be fun and see how that works out. So definitely check that out. But at least for the next 15 days, we don't have to worry about that at all. So again, thank you for following along. Thank you for being here. And as always, stay safe out there.